So you're ready to roll your cylinder. If your clay feels like it's too dry and is going to crack, just put a damp paper towel on top of it for a couple minutes and let it kind of reactivate. But your clay should still be really nice and soft, just not so soft that it's going to collapse. The next thing is you want to take your template, because this is the same size as your clay, and find something that you can use as a mold that this will wrap around. So I found this bottle. I'd rather it overlap than be too small. Either way, it will work. But notice my template wraps around this bottle. I taped a piece of newspaper around this so my clay doesn't stick to it, but I didn't tape it to the bottle so that it's going to make it easy to slide this bottle out after I wrap it. I have my clay here. This is where I cut. This was the top side that I did my cutting. But if you can see, it's a little bit rough on this side. If I flip it, this bottom side is really nice and clean. So when I'm done and ready to clean up my edges, there's less to do on this side. So this is going to be my front instead of the other side. So what I want to do is I am going to lay the front face down, take my bottle, actually I'm going to rotate this so you can see a little bit better, and roll it. I'm going to grab this end and carefully roll it until it overlaps like this. Now my tree branches are coming out, so I'm going to add some pressure there. Now I am getting some cracking right here, so I'm just going to carefully add some pressure and smooth that out. If I need to do some scoring and slipping of extra clay, I can. Just be careful with that. I'm really cracking. And that's that example when I said not to have it too close to the edge, because this is definitely going to be a weak point of my design. But I'm going to carefully, gently add some pressure, pushing these details down. You can cut the negative space out of your clay after you form it. I just think it's easier to do your designing and cutting away flat, but whatever works for you. So now if I roll over to the back here, I want to make sure these are a little bit more lined. And usually you want a little bit of overlapping so that you can cut it straight. I'm okay with this. What I want to do now is do my scoring and slipping. So I'm actually going to score, and I'm not so concerned if it looks super messy, because I'm going to slip and maybe add a coil there. So let me get my slip here. This is that clay that I was recycling, so I might go back to some of the more watery stuff. And this is why you want to make sure that newspaper that you wrapped around that bottle, or whatever cylinder that you're using, was dry. So now I'm overlapping, and I'm going to add some serious pressure. Now the bottle that I have underneath is supporting the clay from collapsing and also helping to form the clay. And I'm just going to smooth that out. So now you can see how scoring and slipping that makes a really nice smooth seam. Now, I did that quickly, I'm going to push this down so that it's sitting nice and flat. And I'm going to roll this onto the side and do a little bit of just maybe fixing those cracks with the slip and just adding some pressure. As long as that bottle's in there, I can put pressure on the clay and not worry about my piece collapsing. So all these areas that are cracking, I'm just adding some pressure on there. Now I can actually, while the bottle is in here, making sure that my clay is all the way pressed to the bottom, I can actually add my base. Whoops, you guys can't see. My base here. So what I want to do is literally just score and slip around the bottom here. So this is all review. I'll keep it going. And I'm being super messy. And again with that, whoops, that bottle is really adding nice support. And you take your time. I'm just doing this quick for the demo. Now, I want to put slip. Don't forget the slip part. That's your glue. If you do not score and slip this clay is not going to stick together, because yesterday the clay was super wet. Today it's not. I guess leather hard's the wrong word. It's somewhere between super soft and leather hard, because leather hard I don't think would form as nicely. So now I'm going to lay this on top. I'm going to put this to the side so you can see what I'm doing. And now, because the bottle's still in there, I'm going to add a lot of pressure, right, into the bottom of my clay. And now I don't want to see that. That's really ugly, right? So now I'm just going to push with my thumb up into my piece. Again, I'm not afraid to add too much pressure because the plastic bottle under there is supporting. So this is really nice and smooth, and I can do more. Now, before you leave, now you can wrap this really tightly in plastic if it's the end of the period and you're still working. Maybe you still have some smoothing to do, but you really don't want to leave this bottle in there too long because as this starts to dry, now we're going to keep it wet, we're going to keep it wrapped in plastic, but when this starts to dry, the clay is going to lose moisture. The water in the clay is going to evaporate, and that's going to cause the clay to shrink. And what will happen is if this bottle's still in there, it's going to shrink and contract and break this clay. It'll start to create cracks, especially, I guarantee it would be right here. So what I'm going to do, because I'm pretty happy with it, because I have my newspaper in there, I'm going to, whoops, it's sticking at the bottom. So I'm going to rotate this carefully and gently pull this out. And voila. Now I have a perfect cylinder. And I still need to clean this up, and I actually do want to, some of you may need to add a coil of clay here where the seam is on the inside. Mine actually looks pretty good, but normally I would have you support the bottom and start to add some pressure where that seam is. This is probably the best cylinder I've ever made, of course. So I'm just going to hold this, stand this up. I'm going to wrap it with plastic lightly because now I want it to set. I don't want my form to change. Now, if I did want to play with the form, maybe I will just to mess with you a little bit. Maybe I just kind of add a little bit of pressure to give it a little bit of oval. But I do want to make sure that I don't squeeze it too much because I want to be able to fit my candle in there later after it's been fired. But now all I have left to do is doing some cleanup. So I'll just cover this lightly with clay or lightly with a plastic bag.